Religious leaders in Australia are coming together as well, but for a much different reason. Earlier this week, citizens in the land down under voted in support of redefining marriage to include same-sex couples. It might become law by early next month, sparking church officials to worry about religious freedom protections. Joining us now via Skype from Sydney, Australia is Monica Doumit, spokeswoman for the Coalition for Marriage, an Australian lobby group advocating to define marriage as being between a man and a woman. So Monica, your country's Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull is pushing for same-sex marriage. He wants legislation basically rushed through by December 7th, the last day Parliament works this year. What are groups in Australia like yours who are pro-marriage doing to try and stop this?
Well, look, we had a survey last week and the result came with a definitive yes. And so we know that we're going to get same-sex marriage in this country. What we really want to do is ensure that any law that goes through protects religious freedom and freedom of speech.
So do you think you'll be successful at stopping the legislation? What do you think are the chances?
Well, I don't think we'll be successful at stopping the legislation. We think that will go through, but now it's all about what that legislation looks like and whether or not it contains sufficient protection for people of faith, for parents who don't want their kids educated in a way that normalises same-sex marriage or same-sex sexual activity.
It's interesting because Australia's Catholic bishops released a statement saying, quote, any change to marriage law must include protections for religious freedom. That's interesting because we don't necessarily think of marriage law connected to religious freedom. How do the two relate? And do you think Parliament is considering any provisions to protect religious freedom?
Well, at the moment, the only religious freedom that Parliament is looking to protect is that priests won't have to celebrate same-sex weddings. But just 2 years ago, we had the Catholic bishops taken to an anti-discrimination tribunal simply for putting out a pastoral letter on the Catholic teaching on marriage. It's about whether or not Catholic schools will get to teach the Catholic tradition on marriage in the schools. It's about whether or not Catholic charities will still be able to maintain their charity status even if they hold to a traditional definition of marriage. So these are the types of protections that we're looking for.
It can be pretty scary. What is your advice for Australians? Is the key here awareness, Monica? What do you think is the solution?
It's awareness and also activism. Get on the phone, get on the email to your local parliamentarian and let them know that you demand your freedoms, you demand your freedom of speech, you demand your freedom of religion, and that you will look very unkindly on anybody who passes a marriage law without also protecting your rights.
It's so important, and obviously to highlight the situation there in Australia, similar to the U.S., where we're fighting sort of this culture battle. Monica Doumit, spokeswoman for the Coalition for Marriage, thanks so much for talking with us.
Thank you for having me.